Hey, everybody. I wanted to thank you all for listening today. My name is Malcolm Gilvar, and I am the Executive Vice President of Sales for the Trade Group. I am joined today by our Vice President of Creative Services, Mike Graziani. Mike, how you doing today?
Hi, Mel.
Good. Mike, I assume most of those listening today are familiar with exhibits and exhibitry, and obviously exhibiting at trade shows. But I'm sure the concept of experiential marketing is a little less understood. So I thought it might help if you could give us your take on what experiential marketing is.
Well, Mel, the Webster's definition of experiential marketing is a strategy that directly engages consumers and invites and encourages them to participate in the evolution of a brand. So basically, unlike print, radio, and television, where you verbally and visually promote the brand and the product benefits, experiential marketing tries to immerse the customer by engaging as many other human senses as possible. In the end, you're trying to make a memorable and emotional connection between the consumer and the brand.
Thanks, Mike. Given that context, what we're going to do today is share several case studies that are going to illustrate how, by combining experiential and traditional exhibits, you can create a much more intimate and exciting brand experience. In addition, we're going to talk about the tools, of which most of them are interactive, that we use to build these experiences. All right, so let's dive in. First thing we're going to do is go through several case studies, and we're going to start with kind of ones that are very simplistic, ones that virtually anyone who's doing a trade show can start doing day one. And then we'll get into some that utilize technology and are much more complex. But let's start talking about, here's one here from Community Coffee. And Community Coffee was an exhibit that we did, and Mike, feel free to chime in anytime here, where we built a large island exhibit for them, and their goal was to create something that gave the atmosphere of New Orleans. And we had street lights, and all the graphics were done in a very New Orleans style. And of course, where they make coffee, we wanted to provide the attendees with an experience of the tastes and the smells of New Orleans.
Absolutely, Mal. All the props and so forth in this booth go a long way to really showcase the company's French Quarter heritage, things like the actual illuminated street lamps and street signs and wrought iron and so forth. And then, of course, the coffee cart itself, when the aroma and so forth is just permeating the exhibit space and, frankly, all the neighboring exhibit spaces. You can understand why the crowds were what they were.
The next one, Mike, is this Play 60, and I know you worked on this extensively, so I'm going to give this one over to you.
This was a real simple 10 by 20 exhibit experience, Mal, promoting physical fitness for kids, and sponsored by the NFL. And so what we did is had some really cool videos playing and so forth, but we had a great counter out front where we had a celebrity athlete signing autographs and giving physical fitness tips to everybody that came up. And it just created a real buzz on the trade show.
Now, Graz, if you hadn't had an actual athlete, could you have substituted here, potentially using a green screen and have kids so that they still got the feel of standing next to an athlete?
Absolutely. We've actually done things like that where we've done little video clips on green screen for them, kids doing jumping jacks or doing calisthenics, that kind of thing,
cool.
And putting them in front of a cool backdrop with professional athletes in the background and so forth. So
Neat.
Really cool, something that they can then post on Facebook and social media.
All right, Mike, the next one we're going to show here, this one is really fun, and this is kind of cool. This is an example of taking an exhibit, and this is an exhibit we did for Firefall. This was at the 2012 Gamescom show in Germany. And this was an absolutely gorgeous exhibit, large exhibit, as you can see here. But what these guys did is part of their game, this exhibit structure actually was a part of their game. It was a part of their world. But a couple of the characters that they have in this game, they wanted to have these characters in a different part of the show hall to gather attention. And we created with statues and a mechanical device. This device is called in the game a thumper, and we placed this in the main entrance to the hall, and it was incredible the traffic that this would generate.
And yeah, it was really cool, Mal. But what was even cooler was the fact that once you did approach the exhibit, we had live actors in full-size costumes. We're talking LED lighting and so forth, basically interacting with the audience, being there for photo opportunities and video opportunities and so forth. And so it really gave the guest an opportunity to interact with the brand itself.
Mike, this next example is one for our customer Wargaming. And this is a great example of where we didn't have to leave the exhibit to create an immersive experience for the attendee. And Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about this one?
Now, what we were trying to do here was basically the theme of this booth was the topographical map, and we were bringing that to life in a 3D fashion within the booth space. So the topographical map basically became the surrounding walls of the exhibit itself, and then we brought those to life by creating frosted live LED panels. Those were what was used to actually make the lines of the topographical map.
Yeah, this exhibit is really incredible, Mike. But what did we do to create a real experience for the attendee?
Well, Mal, the attendee really was surrounded by the brand itself. In those topographical lines, again, we had motion graphics created specifically for this canvas, and it played throughout the exhibit during the entertainment sections. And the entertainment was a stage show with dancing girls in period-correct costumes, because Wargaming's products are all kind of World War II based. And then those stage shows were accompanied by a really cool light show and laser show and so forth and fog and whatnot. So it really was kind of a rock and roll show for the attendee.
All right, Mike, this next one is for Far Cry, and this is really, really cool. This client wanted us to build something that was really spectacular. You know, in most exhibits, you have, for example, this woolly mammoth that you see here is a character in their game. And normally what an exhibitor will do is have a nice big graphic of it, and it looks cool, but they wanted to take it to the next level. So what we did is we created an animatronic version down to every detail of this woolly mammoth. And then, in order to get their fans involved and create an immersive experience for them, they reached out to their fans via social media and said, hey, what do you want to see us break? Whether it's pumpkins, televisions, bicycles, whatever else you can think of. And in this particular video we'll show you right now, the woolly mammoth is actually, this is a test before the show, and breaks a television. It's super cool. This next one, Mike, is a really fun one we did for the company Reverb, and they have a game called Ark, and this giant Tyrannosaurus Rex is in the game. And literally what they asked us to do is create a 20-foot tall dinosaur that they could use for photo opportunities. So you had this staircase, you climb up. And again, what we're trying to accomplish with this, or what the client is trying to accomplish, is to gain brand amplification through social media. Because obviously, anytime you take a picture of yourself on top of a 20-foot dinosaur, you're going to send that out to your friends via social media, and this was hugely effective.
Yeah, there's no doubt this is probably the ultimate photo opportunity.
Yeah, it was amazing. This next one, a case study that we're going to show you, is for Wargaming again. But the next ones we're going to show are Wargaming at their domestic shows. And we're going to show you everything from a static display, where it's in the trade show hall, of a tank crashing through a wall. And then we're going to show you how they incorporate in the booth really cool technology that many of you have seen in The Matrix, and Mike will talk a little bit about this in a second. And then we're going to show, again, they wanted to take this experience and do a brand activation and bring it outdoors while still having a trade show exhibit in the hall. And we'll show you a couple different examples of how they've done that. Mike, why don't you kind of walk us through this?
Sure, Mal. The star of this booth within the actual booth space itself was the full-size model of the military tank, and it is busting through the wall, and so we've got smoke happening, and we've got bricks flying and so forth, as you can see, and the tank is suspended on cables, and there's actually a portion of the back end of the tank that's still up in the lounge area on the second story, whereas the majority of it is just kind of hanging in space. And where it's hanging is creating a big photo opportunity platform utilizing what we call bullet time technology, and that is a semicircle array of still cameras that basically gives you 180 degrees worth of photographs, and then those are stitched together, and the final result is you get this really cool matrix style photo of yourself that you can kind of jump in the air and be suspended in midair and so forth.
And again, I assume it's something, Mike, that the hope is that the attendees will send this out via social media channels.
Exactly. This kind of thing just goes rampant on social media. Really cool stuff. And so then beyond that, outside of the exhibit hall, we had a really cool photo opportunity with a Sherman tank crushing a cab. And again, these are the kind of things that just call attention to the experience that's going to happen on the inside of the show hall before you even get inside the show hall. And then the following year, we took it to another level where we actually brought in a real operating tank. And you can see we have Richard Sherman from the Seattle Seahawks, because this particular event happened in Seattle. He is sitting on the tank kind of calling the shots. And again, we had an array of items that were being crushed by the tank. Everything from a drum kit to a dinner table setting to football helmets and so forth. It was just really crazy, and the crowd was just going wild.
Super
and again,
cool.
This just blew up on social media.
Yeah. This next in-booth experience is for Ubisoft, and you know what? I'm going to let the client tell us what they think of this one.
Here in Boston at PAX East, and we were talking about putting a half pipe in a booth, and that is a tricky endeavor, to say the least. And I don't think it's ever been done, especially at this show. And we work with Trade Group to make it happen. Awesome, from top to bottom, stellar crew. Had a blast. We had to ship the ramps from California, pack them up, bring them in. The flooring is very tricky. It's real slippery on the convention floor. They got in plywood, laid it out, screwed it down, got the ramp set. My guys are safe. The crowd's stoked. Clients are happy. Trade Group rules, man.
Mal, this next project is for League of Legends, and this project was what we call the Riff Walk experience that we created for them. Basically, what they did was, instead of having a traditional trade show exhibit amongst the other exhibits on the trade show floor, we had a separate area in the show hall, their own dedicated room, that we basically were able to create this really cool enveloping experience for all of their fans. And it included things like costume cosplayers and theatrical set design and great lighting and so forth and props. But and we also created this really cool video stitch at the end that the attendee got to take with them. But we have a little video clip here that kind of explains it in a little more detail.
I think one of the amazing things about this one, Mike, too, is that you and your team did an amazing job. But people would wait in line for 4 hours just to experience this, and it was really pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was really the talk of the show.
TTG came up with the initial design that allowed for 4 photo opportunities throughout the exhibit. The design ultimately accommodated the photo ops that were going to be attached to each of the corner fountains, color coordinated in red and blue. The 4 photo opportunities included a slow motion action shot at the Blue Tower, a 180-degree bullet time photo with Baron, a stop motion, and even a forced perspective with a 15-foot tall rendition of Thresh. This intimidating figure gave fans a chance to have a photo taken by an autonomic camera that fabricated the illusion of attendees actually being inside his lantern. We partnered with Fish, utilizing their software to generate hype and a take-home memory for the attendees with the RFID band system. The League of Legends exhibit made a huge impact at PAX East 2016 on both the attendees and the exhibitors. Working with a creative team like Riot enabled TTG to create an exhibit that truly expressed Riot's appreciation for their fan base in a fun and innovative environment.
Now what we're going to do is switch gears a little bit, and talk about what are the tools or the interactives that you can use. And what's really cool about some of these is a lot of folks out there probably aren't going to be able to do some of these very large-scale activations that you've seen. With these tools that we're going to show you, any budget, any size exhibitor can certainly can utilize some of these tools to their advantage to create a really neat immersive experience.
Absolutely. And Mal, the first one that would start off with is the green screen. This is just a great, affordable way to kind of jump in to this arena, and it allows you to give the guest a really cool experience and have some fun at your exhibit, but then it gives you that takeaway, that brand amplification.
Yeah, Mike, and what you're showing here, this is one that we just did for China, and in China, anything Texas is really cool. So what we did is took images of Texas, and I believe there was another one of South Fork Ranch, and then they'd have cowboy hats, and everyone would put their cowboy hat on, stand in front of the green screen, and then they would be put into the scene of the cowboys, of the cheerleaders of South Fork, and it was fantastic. And I'm sure that these folks would send these out via social media channels.
Okay, Mal, so the next thing we're going to look at is the multi-touch touchscreen. And the cool thing about this is it takes the content out of just the standard landscape, 42-inch style monitor. And one of the really cool aspects of them is the interfaces. You can have multiple people standing up at these large monitors and interacting with the content, and then the interfaces themselves are really cool. So it goes beyond the traditional menu bar and point-and-click mouse type thing, where instead you've got these cool sort of dynamic, very organic interfaces where choices are popping up, and the whole
a lot of gamification.
Exactly. And it's just a very compelling interface that makes the person really want to spend a lot of time playing with it.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, is to get that interaction with the client, get the client engaged with the brand.
Exactly. And from a functional standpoint, these things really give you the opportunity for a very deep dive.
Right.
So these can be off to the side in an exhibit where somebody's going to really spend some time and have some fun with it. Okay, so this next example is the object recognition table, and this is a very, very cool interactive technology. Basically, what it is you have a digital table surface with digital content custom created, and it is all triggered by a physical object. So in the image on the right, you see we've got basically what is a phone, and that's got a small chip in it. When it's laid down on the table, now all of the selling points and features of that particular phone come up on screen in a really cool interface. It doesn't necessarily have to be small products, though. You could have icons. So if you're in the real estate industry, it could be a small model of a house that has the chip built into it on the underside, and it is dropped onto the table, and it brings up all the aspects of a particular real estate region. But again, the cool thing about these is the interactive interfaces. This goes beyond, again, the standard menu type system that you have with PCs and Macs. This gets very fluid, very organic, and it's really fun and compelling, and people will be clamoring around these things. You'll have 3 or 4 people on them at a time, and it ends up being the talk of the show. But anytime you're combining the physical with the digital, it really just kind of locks people in.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next example is the sliding monitors. And these are a really cool technology. Basically, there's 2 kind of ways to utilize these. One is over top of a static graphic, and the other is over top of an actual physical object if it is large enough, like you see with the car. But the cool thing about these is if used over a graphic like a timeline, it allows you to unlock content as you move across the graphic with the sliding monitor. So if you want to tell a really deep story and you've got a lot of detail to it, showing all of that information on a big static graphic is just going to overwhelm the viewer. But with these, as the viewer slides the monitor across, it starts to open up pieces of content, whether it's text or photos or video clips as they move across, and they're only getting portions of it in the area that they're currently rolling over. So it really allows them to kind of focus on that content bit by bit. And then, of course, when you use it over top of a real product like we have with the car, that just becomes a really cool way to showcase features and benefits of a particular element like the car here in a way that you could never do with just a static image or even a 2D video. Okay, and this next technology is holographic projection. So this is basically taking digital content and putting it on a really cool surface, transparent glass, if you will. These can be either static or they can be interactive. But the cool thing about them is you're taking them out of the standard 42-inch monitor. People are kind of compelled to come over and see what's going on. But also in the exhibit space, you can have a number of these and the booth doesn't feel claustrophobic or cut off because you can see through them. And even at a distance, as you see this field of these units, it just becomes really cool. And again, it's a great attractor. And then kind of building on that, the next option is spherical projection. So here we're utilizing the sphere as the projection surface. The projector is actually located in the base, and then it projects up into the surface of the sphere. And these are really great for showing locations of your remote offices and so forth, showing global presence and whatnot. But again, these can be touch capable or they can just be static. But again, very compelling. People want to come up, they want to play with them and so forth. And these come in a variety of sizes. Okay, and the last technology we're going to look at is the clear LED showcase. And these are really cool technology. We have them here in our Dallas showroom. What it is basically, again, the combination of digital and the physical. So we've got physical product inside a really nice lit display box. On the left, you see the wine glasses. On the right, you see the shoes. And then the glass face on the display case is actually a clear LED screen that can play digital content. And it's really cool. Anything in the video that is white becomes transparent and everything else shows up. So you can have digital content about the product inside the box playing on the screen. Again, these can be static, they can just play, or they can be touch capable. I haven't seen anything like these anywhere as far as being able to have an unmanned station to showcase a product.
And you can deliver so much more content than you ever could with a static graphic showing of a display. Or even if you had a monitor next to a product, it wouldn't be the same as being able to see the product at the same time as you're getting the message delivered to you.
Absolutely. And the thing is these would even work for something outside of a small product. I mean, if you were a travel agency, you could have a little vignette set up inside the box with props and so forth. So it doesn't have to be specifically for a small product, but to have, again, that combination of digital over top of the physical is just really compelling.
And Mike, a lot of these things that we just showed, the building blocks to making all these is motion graphics. And of course, motion graphics is a way for you, we always tell our customers, you really can't have but one or two value propositions on a graphic in a display. And the reason being is it would be too cluttered otherwise. The use of motion graphics allows you to do a much deeper dive, much more expansive story. Anything, Mike, you would add to that?
Well, the fact is, Mel, I think we all suffer from short attention span these days. And if I were to tell you how much information that I was about to give you in a motion graphic, you'd probably walk away from me if I had it all printed out. But because I'm giving it to you only in bite-sized chunks, but in rapid-fire succession, I'm able to hit you with a lot of information, and you, the viewer, are not getting bored or frustrated with that.
Well, and they also say the millennial buyers, this is what they are looking at on a day-to-day basis via YouTube and everything they do from social channels. This is how they like their content to be delivered, is in a fun, exciting, with movement.
Exactly, and I think it's very complementary to the static trade show exhibit, and again, it is kind of the foundation for all of these technologies that we've shown.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank everybody today for tuning in and to this webcast, and if you have any questions, feel free to email them to me at malgilvar@tradegroup.com. Thanks again.